Well, following the Palestinian bid, officials in Israel say they will now build 3,000 new homes as part of its ongoing settlement activities on the West Bank, action the UN considers illegal. Let's talk more about this with Phyllis Bennis, director of the new internationalism project at the Institute for Policy Studies. She's joining us on the line from Washington, D.C. Phyllis, morning to you. How will the Palestinian leadership deal with this latest settlement threat now that it's been granted more political power by the UN?
We don't think that there's going to be a significant shift in Palestinian diplomatic strategy right away. This gives one more indication that for Israel, the settlement construction process is thoroughly political. In this case, it was designed explicitly to punish the Palestinians for having the audacity to go to the United Nations, something that ironically the Israelis call a unilateral act, when of course going to the UN is the ultimate act of multilateralism. But I think that what we're looking at is really a continuation of what we've seen all along. The settlement construction that has gone on for many, many years in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem, there are now over 600,000 illegal Israeli settlers living on occupied territory, which means they are breaking the law every morning simply by waking up. That hasn't changed. This is going to make it worse. What this does, I think, is two things. One, we heard earlier, it will give the Palestinians the possibility of going to join either the International Criminal Court, which could allow some level of accountability for Israeli war crimes. Additionally, it means they could have the possibility to join the International Court of Justice as a member, as a state, in which case they could do what countries do in the International Court of Justice all the time, bring a lawsuit against another country. In this case, the state of Palestine could sue the state of Israel for its illegal occupation.
I wonder what the other ramifications might be. You mentioned just now the settlements, that announcement as being seen as a punishment. I mean, Israel's threatened the Palestinians with sanctions too over this vote. And the US, of course, lawmakers there warning they might cut aid to Palestine. Do you think the bid of success at the UN that Ramallah's emboldened tonight, but it could actually have a negative impact, a more broad negative impact on the West Bank and Gaza?
You know, I think that one thing that Susan Rice said was correct, about the only thing she said that was correct, was that this is not going to have a huge impact on the ground. It's not going to make things significantly different by itself on the ground. Besides the question of joining international agencies such as the International Criminal Court or the International Court of Justice, the other aspect that we're looking at here is that this becomes a marker in the shift of discourse on this question globally. Here in the United States, we've been talking for some years about how the U.S. political opinion, political discourse has changed away from the traditional uncritical support for Israel. It has not yet changed the policy, but it has massively shifted at the level of discourse. The UN vote yesterday is exactly the same thing on the level of the international discourse, where we are seeing countries around the world, including the UK, including Germany, countries who were never prepared to oppose the US-Israeli position
That's what I was going to ask you. What's
standing
the
aside and allowing
here?
it to go forward.
What's the catalyst here for this? What's changed?
What has changed has been the continual failure of the U.S.-controlled so-called peace process to lead to any kind of end to occupation. We hear constantly from the U.S. and from Israel that the only way that there will be peace, the only way there will be two states, as if that was still a possibility, is in discussions between the two parties, as if they were equal. We never hear that what will make possible a lasting, comprehensive, and just peace is the end of occupation, the end of apartheid, the end of Israel's violations. That has nothing to do with negotiations. Those are obligations under international law. And what I think was the catalyst here is that political pressure on Abu Mazen, on the Palestinian Authority, from their own population, from their own people who were saying, you know what? We've had 21 years of failed diplomacy. We're not looking for 22. We want something different. And the different thing was to go to the international community to reclaim the centrality of the UN and the centrality of international law as the basis of any solution.
Phyllis, thank you for your thoughts. Phyllis Bennis, Director of the New Internationalism Project at the Institute for Policy Studies, there on the line. Thank you ever so much.